Welcome, everybody. I'm Laura Barreca from the BCIT Student Association Entrepreneurship Department, and this is our live entrepreneur virtual series. I've got a guest here, Sebastien Nault, and really excited to present our summer series to you. Just to let you know what we do at the BCITSA Entrepreneurship Department is we work with students that are interested in starting businesses, students and alumni, and if you have any business questions or there's any topics that you want to cover, you can also get in touch with us and we'd love to help. Today, the event that we have here is we have a guest, Sebastien Nault. He's a mentor from our mentorship program and he's an entrepreneur. And I'm going to be chatting with Sebastien about how he and his business have adapted to all the changes that have happened in the last few months. So to start, Sebastien, if you could just introduce yourself and give us a little overview of your business, that would be great.
Yeah, of course. So like you said, I'm Sebastien Nault. I'm the founder and CEO of the Black Tie group of companies. So we mostly do exterior building maintenance. Basically, we have three companies under the umbrella. We have Black Tie Property Services Vancouver, which does window cleaning, power washing, dryer vent cleaning, anything related to the exterior maintenance of buildings. Mostly for commercial properties and strata properties here in the Lower Mainland. We have the same sort of business established in Victoria, smaller scale, and we also have a third division that does post-construction window cleaning. So we work with large builders and developers, mostly large towers, on the final clean before the tower gets delivered to the owners. So we do power washing, some chemical cleans, some paint touch-up, anchor installation, that kind of stuff. Started the business in 2011. So been in business for 9 years now. Started from scratch and built this up to about 50 employees over the three division right now, with plans to expand across Canada over the next few years.
Wow, I didn't know that part. Across Canada, that's amazing.
Yeah, we're on our way, slowly but surely.
Awesome. So your business is very physically in person. It's not something that can be done over the internet. Property maintenance. And so I'm wondering, with all the changes due to the pandemic, how has the pandemic really influenced you? What are the main ways?
Well, thankfully, the BC government came out pretty quickly with their list of essential services. So cleaning services were part of that, and because we work outside mostly, with the ability to do physical distancing while we work, we were able to basically, after a couple moments of panic where we didn't know what was going to happen and people not being sure if they should keep their services on, we were able to just continue operation as normal. So, it hasn't had that huge of an impact. The part that we got impacted on was mostly because we do a lot of large hotel properties here in Vancouver. So, for instance, we service the Park Hotel and Casino, the Wall Center properties. So these guys are losing millions of dollars. Unfortunately, they're closed. So obviously those services were canceled. So we're definitely seeing a dip in revenues, but nothing that justifies what other companies have had to do, like completely pivot or change the business model. Fortunately, we're able to continue as, pretty much business as usual.
Right. So it definitely helps to be considered an essential business.
Yeah.
But of course, your customers are affected, so that has ripple effects all down the line.
Absolutely.
Is there anything special that you've done to adapt, even though you said there haven't been massive changes? You maybe are losing some business, or is there anything that you've done to adapt?
Well, a lot of, not so much anymore, but at the very beginning, a lot of, especially strata clients, were not sure if they wanted to have contractor in their buildings. So that's, was fair enough. You don't want to have people coming in and out and potentially bringing a virus in. So we put out the communication to our customers right away. We adapted our procedures, so everybody's wearing masks now, wearing gloves. We've instituted some disinfecting procedure that were not part of our normal process. So basically now stratas are getting an added service where our crew all carry disinfectant with them. So, any doorknobs that they touch, elevator panel, when they go in and out, they disinfect as they go. So it's basically a free add-on service that adds value to the customer and basically allows us to keep working. So adds value to us as well.
Nice. That must reassure them a lot when you hear
Yeah.
those steps that you're taking. That was actually leads me to my next question. I was just wondering about the interactions that you have with customers, how how things have changed. You kind of touched on some things already. The way that you communicate with people, it sounds like you need to take more steps to reassure people and to explain to them the length that you're going to keep everybody safe. Are there any other changes or things that you want to say about how you interact with your customers?
Yeah, we definitely changed our approach a little bit. Typically, we're not that we're in a high, like, pressure sales organization, but we look for the upsell. We call our customers looking at, do you need anything else? We've really focused now, our communication with customers is based on building that lasting relationship, making sure they know that we care about them. So a little bit more on the relationship building side than on the sales side, which they always intersect, but right now it's more of a caring conversation, like, how are you doing personally? How's, little Julie, and, how's teaching your kid at home now? Are you okay? Do you need anything? So that kind of conversation that we didn't really need to have in the past now is happening, and that's the way we've sort of angled our conversations with the customers now.
Yeah, that's so interesting. I've heard from some other experts that we had on a panel about marketing that empathy is really the most important thing to focus on now, and not just selling, like you're saying, when you're talking to customers, but really taking care of them and building a connection. And that's all feel safe as well.
For sure.
On the same token, was there anything that you had to do to reassure your employees, your team members? You mentioned that you have a big team now. Were people willing and ready to keep working, or was there any hesitation? Were there safety concerns?
I think that in a time like this, like for me, like the first thing that came to mind, there was so much confusion, so much fear, and I think as a leader, you don't want to fall on the wrong side of history and just say, like, hey, you need to come to work, you need to do this, we need to keep working. So it's been really about matching the comfort level of not only our customers, but also our employees. So we let everybody know that if you feel any symptoms, anything at all that feels like a cold or the flu, you stay home, and you stay home for 2 weeks, and that's fine. We'll take care of helping you with the paperwork, the government, all that. We've also, made sure that we created this feedback loop and created, some Zoom meetings right away. Weekly, we hold like a big town hall and like have a happy hour and make sure that we listen to their concern and allow them to express their fear. Or, we had in particular an employee that very valued team member, great guy, has been with us for 3 or 4 years, and he has a girlfriend at home that has severe asthma, and he didn't want to come back to work, was really concerned. And we just said, hey, it's okay, that's fine, like, you stay home, you do what you need to do. I think that in these times it's really important to allow people to make their own decisions. Fortunately, we didn't face what a lot of companies have faced as far as like having to choose between CERB and going to work. Like, most of our employees earn quite a bit more than what is they would make with CERB. So that equation didn't really factor into
Yeah, that's an interesting one that comes up in a lot of industries. But yeah, it sounds like, and I like how you mentioned the team building and the Zoom happy hours, that type of thing, to stay connected. It's so important when you can't see people, to have ways to maintain that contact and to make them feel like you're still part of the same team.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So because you're in an industry that, like field service, your crews are out there working. I see your trucks around town, and you're considered an essential business. Are there any industry changes that you see occurring as a result of this pandemic? You can speak to your own industry or to others that you might have noticed.
Well, I think I'll speak for our industry. It's businesses are closing all over the place, and weekly we just see more and more. And I'm becoming really sad to see, like, that there's businesses are really close to my heart. Like Trans Am Restaurant is right by our office, tiny little hole in the wall, beautiful place. Like, it's just my favorite place in town, hands down. they closed last weekend. So I was really sad about that. And that's a small restaurant, but there's a bunch of other businesses right now that are closing shop, or even it's related to COVID, but not necessarily that they're hurting, but they realize that now, like, their $8,000 a month Yaletown office is not necessary for their business, and they can operate remotely. A good friend of mine just gave up his office, and another entrepreneur friend of mine, same thing, just decided, okay, we're just going to move virtual, use that money in other ways. So I think the domino effect on the real estate industry and the large real estate holdings and investment funds that hold these buildings, they will get impacted. And you know, we're personally, you know, at Black Tie, we're a small line item on these people's list of expenses, but I think as they tighten budget, that commercial market for us will be a lot harder, and probably not as we won't see as much growth, and probably a decrease on that front. Fortunately, you know, a large percentage of our business is strata based, so residential stratas are pretty stable. They have a budget. People live in their home. They're going to be home a lot more. So I think on that front, we're pretty safe. But on the commercial real estate sector, I think that's where we're going to see a big change. And also, that may affect the construction industry as well if the economy in general is depressed, and you know, condos are not moving as much anymore, and people are not needing office space as much anymore. Then, you know, things will slow down, I think, in general. So we're prepared. We're forecasting for decrease in revenues probably for the next 2 to 3 years. Not necessarily significant for us, but I think the economy in general is it's going to take a while to recover.
Yeah, like you mentioned, that ripple effect. If the hotels and everything are hit, then, you know, all of their service providers are also hit, and that might mean adapting by looking at new customer segments, or maybe building out your existing customer segments that are working well, like the stratas that you mentioned. I'm sure a lot of businesses are doing the same thing. Since you mentioned a decrease in revenue, for any entrepreneurs that are tuning in, do you have any advice for best practices for managing your cash flow in a time of crisis? Like, what are you doing now to, if you see that revenue drop going on for the next few years, are there any steps that you can take, or like, how are you dealing with that?
Yeah, we're fortunate enough to deal with, we outsource our bookkeeping to a company called Shift Financials, and they have stepped up to the plate huge for us. And for, like, they came up with like a list of things to do, like right when things hit the fan. So we basically, the first task that we had to do is go through our list of expenses, go through our basically our credit card statements, and just look, you know, what are those monthly recurring revenue, not revenues, but expense that we can get rid of. You know, so there's a lot of like software subscription and stuff that you don't even notice that come out that are not necessarily that much. So basically the exercise is what is a need to have and what is a nice to have, and get rid of them to have for now. They can come back later, but you know, right now we need to tighten the belt. So we got rid of a whole bunch of stuff that was a little bit maybe, you know, not necessary. And then we took the steps. We looked at our largest expenses, and, you know, like suppliers and things that we need to have, but are big expenses. And then we tried to negotiate with them to get better terms, maybe a bit of a discount. And, you know, and at a time like this, people are willing to talk. They want to keep your business, and people will just band together to make things happen, to make sure that, you know, maybe their revenue dips a bit, yours dips a bit, but like we still work together. So those are the steps that we've taken. And I think it's important to just tighten up everything, you know, like how you receive money, make sure that, you know, your receivables are kept super clean. Don't let things go past, like, whatever your terms are. Have clear agreements with your the people you do business with, and same thing on the other side on the payables. You know, try to stretch those as much as possible, get the best term possible with your vendors.
Yeah, I just want to highlight for everybody to what you just said about receivables. I know it's such a huge issue with especially new entrepreneurs that might not have a super good grasp on all of their finances when they're getting started, and revenue earned is not the same thing as cash in hand. And for your books can easily look really good and show that you're very profitable, but then your bank account can be empty and
Yeah, cash
receivables.
is king, especially in a time like this. So yeah,
Cash is king. That's what everyone's saying now. So yeah, just to reiterate Sebastian's point that uh, you know, you might be profitable, but then just not collecting on time, or if people are paying late, not noticing and not having that system to follow up as soon as something's late, sending the reminders and making sure that you're retaining that business and, you know, being polite with people, but also making sure that you get paid when you need to.
yeah.
That's huge.
And if your business is with in a sector that, you know, is hurting really hard right now, it's important to stay on top of that, because, you know, with you can have the best intentions, but if a business is going under, like if you're supplying that business, you're at risk as well. So you have to be very, very careful on what terms you extend to your customers.
That's another good point. Yeah, I guess having a good awareness of your supply chain to and trying to pinpoint those areas where you might experience risk, whether it's
Hmm.
like with your customer segment and not knowing if you're going to get paid there. Um, and yeah, another good point that you made that I liked was just tightening up your expenses. So having that ability to go through everything that you're spending on and analyze whether or not that's a need to have or it's a nice to have, and like you said, something that can be added back in later,
Hmm.
or you know, it's nice to be able to cut those things when times are tough.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Um, I'm guessing that I don't know. Everybody handles stress differently, but if you're a business leader and this crisis hit, you know you kind of have a responsibility for all your
Mhm.
big team, your employees, and your customers and everything. Like, has it been really stressful for you, or have things gotten better? And was there anything special that you did to manage any stress?
I think as a leader and an entrepreneur, you grow with your business. And I think for me, my stress level has decreased as my business has gotten bigger. It's a weird sort of like inverted thing. Like, I was more stressed out when I had like a lot on my plate, maybe just 10 guys, but I had to look myself after operations, after sales, after receivables. Like, you know, when you're small, you have to do everything. So, and I find that personally, I found that really stressful. But it forced me to develop really good habits, and those habits have stayed with me like throughout the years. So now I have a really good morning routine. That's super important. First of all, I get enough sleep. So I think that's the basic, like everybody needs to get enough sleep. So for me, that means 6 to 7.5 hours. Everybody's different. Some people need less, some people need more. I know how much sleep I need to get, and I make sure I get it every day. I work very much with the seasons. I like to get up with the sun, so I get up very early in the morning. So that works for me. Some people are different. Find out what works for you, but have a really good sleep hygiene. I think is super
Mm,
important, and
yeah.
get up at a time that allows you to be productive before your workday starts. So for me, being productive means I have good mental and physical habits. So basically, I start my day with a 10-minute meditation,
Mm.
and that's even though I still struggle, my mind goes all over the place. I don't think I'm really good at meditating, but
So
I
hard.
force myself to do it every
Yeah,
day. I sit for 10 minutes, and
mindfulness is difficult.
yeah, so that's something I do every morning, and then I dedicate at least an hour to exercise and stretching, and
Nice.
that's usually time that I use. Like, you know, I have a personal trainer, but you know, during COVID that wasn't working, so we got a stationary bike, and so we still, my wife and I exercise at home, uh, and that routine has sort of saved me and allows me to start my day like, to me, like the sort of rush of endorphins I get from a hard workout just allows me
Yeah.
to start the day on such a good note. Like I feel like I'm on top of the world uh, before anything starts, and I have my daily huddle with my team and all that stuff. So when I show up for this, I show up at my best self, like
Yeah.
because I have exercised, I've meditated, I've showered, I've eaten a proper breakfast. So I think the morning routine is really, for me, like it's the thing
Yeah.
that is the stress saver for sure.
Nice. Yeah. A few points that I've heard that you echoed that I've seen elsewhere are definitely about sleep. Everybody kind of starts with that. Getting enough sleep from all the experts seems to be a non-negotiable.
Yeah.
And yeah, exercise is so good for the mind. But I totally agree with you. When I attempt to meditate as well, it's hard to even go 10 seconds without having your mind wander, but it's
Awesome.
important to try.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
yeah, it's like whack-a-mole, you know. You're like, oh, I'm thinking, jeez, I try to shut it down. It's funny.
Yeah. It's a good exercise though. Um, so yeah, another thing I sort of brought up when we had marketing experts on one of our panels, and how they talked about empathy. I was wondering if you had made any changes to your business's marketing tactics as a result of the pandemic. Are you doing the same thing? I know some entrepreneurs have started to invest more, some have cut expenses. So I'm just curious how you've responded.
Mm. Uh, for us, our marketing is twofold. Like it's easier to get work than it is to get the people to do the work. So our marketing budget is sort of split between a part that faces potential employees, and that's sort of international. It's social media, it's Instagram, Facebook, and that's basically our customers don't even go there. Like they might go check out our Instagram, but they don't really. That's not how we do business.
Yeah.
We're very like B2B, so so we kept that side going to get like keep like show our community what we're doing during COVID, and like keep our sort of like our pool of potential employees engaged.
Mm.
On the customer front, we've diverted a lot of our sales and marketing resources to retention. So basically, instead of going out trying to acquire new customers right now, which we typically do for the commercial sector, which is very depressed, we focus our energy on retention. So customer feedback surveys, if we're getting like less than like an 8 out of 10 follow up, what happened, how is this not a 10, what can we do to make it a 10, can we go back? So making sure that we keep the customers that we have is this year. So that's how we sort of shifted. As far as expenditure goes, we're forecasting a dip in revenue, so we have not increased marketing efforts because we don't think that's where we're best served right now. I mean, I've had that discussion with our digital marketing supplier. We've chatted about it, but I think that right now, and they've worked with us on reducing our fees, so which is great. So we're getting a bit of a break on that. And we have not really increased anything that's outbound, like aimed at getting more customers right now.
Yeah, I gotcha. It makes sense with the situation, the way things are now. And you echoed some things that some other founders have mentioned to me too, which is to just care more for the customers that you already have rather than focus on acquiring new customers when your existing customers are so important, the ones that are sticking with you. Make sure that you're really taking care of them and listening to them.
Yeah.
Yeah, great advice. I do have an audience question that I wanted to share. So for any entrepreneurs, especially people starting out now, do you have any advice for how to approach networking? And how important is it for your business to make time for networking? It's a bit hard these days. People aren't really networking in person, but especially for new entrepreneurs, building that network, whether it's your personal contacts or using into the professional network to get connections and things, it's really the foundation of where a lot of people start. It's tricky these days. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
Yeah, I know. I mean, personally, I think like it's really tough because a lot of people find value in the in-person connection and going to events, and that's been really tough. And I think even though we're sitting here in a virtual meeting, like a lot of people are tired of these and they won't attend them anymore because there's so many of those learning events and this and that. So how do you translate that experience to an online? I think, especially for a new entrepreneur, like depending on which industry you're in, like I find that LinkedIn is an amazing resource. A lot of like everybody's on LinkedIn, and that's basically, it's a difficult platform to leverage for marketing and sales. Really hard to get your message noticed and to use it as a viable business tool, but I find that as a networking tool, it gives you access to pretty much everyone that you could possibly imagine. So I think maybe the networking part will be a bit difficult to achieve for now, but you can start following people that are in your industry that are leaders, people that you admire, entrepreneurs that you think are doing great. it doesn't cost anything to send someone a message and say,
Yeah.
hey, like, you know, like, can I add you in my network? And if they reply, like, you know, people, entrepreneurs in particular, like, are a very giving bunch. I think, like, if you manage to make it and you scrapped your way through like
Mhm.
business failures, if a young entrepreneur that's starting a business reaches out to you and says, hey, you know what, like, I love networking and stuff, and I can't right now, and I'd love to pick your brain for, you know, like 10 minutes. Could we have a call? Like, you might get turned down 4 or 5 times, but like the 2 or 3 people that are going to say yes, like, you might have
Mhm.
some amazing conversations. And those, to me, in my opinion, like, with my personality type especially, like, that personal one-on-one connection is probably more valuable and less stressful than going to an event and having to pass around business
Mhm.
cards and try to elbow your way to the person you really want to talk to. You can just go straight to the person you want to
Yeah,
talk to and be like, hey,
that's
want to chat? And there's nobody around that's going to like listen in or cut
sure.
off. Or so,
Yeah. No, that's
so I think
great.
that's what if I was starting, like, I still do this right now. I reach out to people I want to do business with on LinkedIn and say, hey, could we chat?
Mhm.
If I was starting out and I couldn't go to events, I'd definitely like turn in that direction.
Awesome. Yeah. So I guess try to see this as, although there are limitations with not being able to attend, I guess, what we're traditionally used to, the conferences and things like that, those are also limiting in a way that maybe it's harder to talk to the person that you want, like you said, or maybe there's a crowd, harder to navigate. And
Yeah.
but yeah, it could be an opportunity to connect more as a one-on-one basis and
Yeah.
really have a chance to ask your questions. And
It's like it's a great time to be an introvert. I'm an introvert myself, and I find networking events, like, force myself. I go to conferences, I do all that stuff, but I find them pretty intimidating still. And I think now that I don't have to do it, I'm loving it, but I still have to connect with people, and there are ways to do it. So
nice. Yeah, LinkedIn's definitely a valuable tool for that. Um, I want to go to a more general entrepreneurship question. From your own experience, are there any resources that you would recommend when students are just starting out? We have a lot of students and alumni that are just starting businesses and just looking for recommendations on things like, books, podcasts, or places that you go to find answers to business questions, anything like
yeah,
that.
not a huge podcast guy, to be honest. Like, I use podcasts mostly to listen to the news. So I listen to Daily by the New York Times and to NPR
Mhm.
podcasts, and I try to, just stay on up to date on current events. But as far, like, I found a podcast for the construction industry a few weeks ago that a friend referred me to. It's called Tools of the Trade. It's a Vancouver guy that's now in Toronto,
Yeah.
Colin, and it's I found his content amazing. Like, lots of small businesses on there that are sharing insights, and the episodes, I think, are about an hour, and they go in depth and on, the entrepreneurship and what it's like to run a business, and it's very sort of like contractor focused. So I really enjoyed this content. I've been listening to a few of those lately.
Oh, nice.
I find that again, I'm going to repeat myself, but LinkedIn, like, follow the people that are
Mhm.
leaders in your industry, or leaders in entrepreneurship in general, and look at the articles that they post. Like, there's a ton of stuff out there.
Yeah.
Too much content almost to keep up with, especially now that everything is virtual.
Yeah.
I'm big on books. Like, books are, to me, like, like, if you're an entrepreneur, if you haven't read the E-Myth, like, just go right now. Leave this webinar, go get the
Go
E-Myth.
read
You
it.
need to read that for sure. If there's one business book that I would say, like, if you're gonna read one and read over and over and over again, it's Good to Great by Jim Collins. And
Okay.
also it's the other book, Great by Choice, which is more focused on the entrepreneur and on times of crisis and failures and all that. So those are two amazing books. And the one
Awesome.
book that really, really changed my life and the way I operate my business is Traction by Gino Wickman. And
Okay.
it explains the entrepreneurial operating system and gives you a full framework on how to run your business. And that's been definitely life changing for me.
Wow. Okay, amazing. We'll share links to those resources when we share this recording, so that people can go right to those resources. I'm definitely gonna check some of those out myself as well. Yeah, I think that's where we will wrap it up. The BCITSA Entrepreneurship Department, we're here. We're still working over the summer. We'll have some more of these events with our mentors and entrepreneur community throughout the next little while. And if anybody has entrepreneurship questions, please get in touch with us. Our information, you can check us out on our website. Send us an email. Sebastian's one of our mentors, so we're actually taking applications now for our next mentorship intake, which starts in September. So get in touch if you're an entrepreneur looking for a mentor. And yes, we always love to hear from you. Thank you so much, Sebastien, for joining us. Thanks for enlightening us with all those answers.
Thank you, and I'll be around for sure.